The Trump administration is making waves in trade yet again. Today we're going to talk about proposed shipping fees on Chinese-built boats and what that might mean to the U.S. economy and the fertilizer sector specifically. Hi, I'm Veronica Nye, Senior Economist at TFI. Thanks for joining me today. And before we jump into the shipbuilding efforts and potential impacts on trade flows, I do want to mention that TFI's website is now featuring 4 publicly available resources that I mentioned about a month ago. If you navigate to the market intelligence section of the TFI website, you'll find 4 resources. The 4 topics of those resources are U.S. mineral fertilizer consumption by state, an overview of domestic versus imported nutrient consumption in the U.S., looking at U.S. fertilizer imports by and exports by month, and also the import sources for different U.S. nutrients. Really encourage you to take a look at those. So on to the topic of the day. Now that we're not talking about import fees of 25% on Canadian potash and nitrogen imports as much, at least for the next few weeks, I want to turn to another item that has really caught the attention of our members, and that's potential fees on Chinese port of call entries to the United States and potential fees on Chinese-built ships. So I'll give you a little bit of background on where this came from and how the industry is responding. So back about a year ago, in March of 2024, 5 labor unions with shipbuilding interest filed a petition with USTR alleging that the Chinese government was engaging in unfair trade practices, trying to bolster their standing in the global shipping realm. In April of 2024, USTR initiated an investigation, and in January of this year, in 2025, USTR published that report. And that report did find that China has targeted maritime logistics and shipbuilding sectors for dominance, and that they've really directed efforts to bolster those sectors. To put a little bit more statistics around that, the report found that China's efforts has raised China's shipbuilding market share from less than 5% in 1999 to over 50% in 2023. That their ownership of the commercial fleet grew to over 19% as of January 2024, and that they're controlling the production of 95% of shipping containers and of intermodal chassis. Obviously, that's a pronounced growth by the Chinese in the shipbuilding and container building sectors. USTR, in response to their findings, have now proposed actions to try to help bolster U.S. shipbuilding efforts, and are holding a hearing on those proposed actions later this month. So what are those proposed actions? USTR is considering a per port call fee of $1 to $1.5 million as part of an effort to grow the domestic shipping industry in the U.S. For some context, the U.S. was less than half of 1% of total shipbuilding endeavors in 2022. To put a little bit finer point on that, in 2022, which is the most recent data we have available, there were 5 ships under construction in the United States. There were nearly 1,800 ships under construction in China. There were over 700 ships under construction in South Korea and nearly 600 ships under construction in Japan. So the U.S. is certainly a very, very minuscule portion of global shipbuilding efforts. USTR has proposed initiating a per port fee of $1 to $1.5 million as part of an effort to grow the domestic shipbuilding industry in the United States. This will impact all types of vessels and will have an outsized impact on dry bulk carriers, as 40% of U.S. port calls are by Chinese-built ships. Also under consideration is a change to U.S. cargo preference laws that would increase the percentage of U.S. exports transported on U.S. flagged vessels from 1% to 15% over a 7-year period. USTR has scheduled a public hearing on March 24th. This will certainly be an ongoing endeavor and something that could potentially have a significant impact on the fertilizer industry and the U.S. economy at large. Thanks very much for joining me today. And as always, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss, please do shoot me an email, vnye@tfi.org, and be happy to discuss. Thank you.